I was only 8 years old when I learned the meaning of the word forever. Not from a book. Not from a teacher, but from death. That morning began like any other. My mother woke me up for school while my father got ready for work. I still remember his tired smile as he fixed his shirt button in the mirror. He looked at me and said, "Study well, my son. One day you will be someone important." I did not know that it would be the last time I would ever hear his voice. That afternoon, I was sitting in school when a teacher came to my classroom and quietly called my name. Her face looked different, pale and shaking. My heart felt heavy before she even spoke. "Your uncle is here. You need to go with him." As I walked outside, I saw my uncle standing near the gate, his eyes red with tears. The moment I reached him, he hugged me tightly and cried like a broken child. That was the moment I knew something terrible had happened. When I reached home, our street was full of people. Neighbors, relatives, strangers, everyone was there. I pushed through the crowd and ran inside. My father was lying on the floor, still silent, covered with a white cloth. My mother was sitting beside him, holding his hand, crying so hard that it felt like the walls themselves were shaking. I kept calling him, "Abu, Abu, please wake up," but he never did. That day my father died in a road accident, and with him, my childhood died too. After my father's death, everything changed. The house that once felt safe now felt empty. The laughter disappeared, the warmth faded, the security was gone. My father was not a rich man, he was a simple worker, but his presence was our strength. Without him, the world felt too large and too cruel. I remember one night, hearing my mother cry silently in the darkness. I pretended to be asleep, but her pain entered my heart like fire. I wanted to hug her, but I didn't know how to comfort someone who had lost everything. She had lost her husband, I had lost my hero. Within months, poverty entered our home like an uninvited guest. The food became less, the clothes became old, the bills became old, the bills became a nightmare. Sometimes we had only one meal in the entire day. One night I told my mother I was not hungry. She knew I was lying. She split her only piece of bread in half and placed it in front of me with a smile. Mothers eat from their children's happiness. She said that night I cried while pretending to sleep. At the age of 9, I began working. Not because I wanted to, because I had to. In the mornings I cleaned a small shop. The owner paid me a few coins. Sometimes he shouted at me for being slow. Sometimes he ignored me like I did not exist. Other boys played in the streets. I worked. My hands became rough. My back became tired. My childhood slowly disappeared, but every evening, no matter how exhausted I was, I went to school because my mother believed education was the only door out of darkness. My mother never showed her weakness to the world. She stitched clothes for people late into the night. She washed dishes in strangers' houses. She carried water, pain and loneliness on her thin shoulders. But every night before sleeping, she raised her hands in prayer. "Oh Allah, I lost my husband. Please don't let my son lose his future." Her room was small. Her carpet was torn, but her prayers touched the sky. One day the school demanded overdue fees. The teacher told me I would not be allowed to attend class anymore. I walked home with trembling legs. When I told my mother, she sat silently for a long time. Then she removed her wedding bangles, the last memory of my father, and placed them in my hands. "Sell these," she said. "Your education is more important than my memories." I cried loudly that day, because I realized a terrible truth: poverty can break a person. But a mother breaks herself to save her child. Not everyone was kind. Some people mocked us, some relatives avoided us. Some said, "The boy will become nothing, a fatherless child is always weak." Their words cut deep. But my mother would look at me and say, "Let the world talk one day. The same mouths will praise you." I held those words in my heart like a promise. At the age of 16, I tried to start my first small business. I borrowed a little money and started selling fruit from a tiny cart. For a few months, things went well. Then one night, thieves stole everything. The cart, the fruit, the money, all gone. When I returned home empty-handed, I expected my mother to be angry. Instead, she washed my dusty hands and said, "Loss teaches more than profit. Stand up again." That night, she prayed longer than usual. There were nights when my mother was sick, but I had no money for a doctor. I would sit beside her bed, feeling useless. I hated my poverty. I hated my weakness. I hated that I could not give her comfort. And yet, every time I felt broken, she felt stronger. One night, as my mother slept, I looked at her tired face and whispered a promise in my heart. "One day I will build a life where you will never have to beg for anything again." I did not know how. I did not know when, but I knew I would never stop trying. My father died when I was a child. Poverty raised me, pain shaped me, and my mother prayed for me like her life depended on it. I did not know it yet, but my real journey had only just begun. Life did not become easier after my first failure. It became heavier after my small fruit cart business was stolen. I felt like someone had ripped my dreams out of my hands and thrown them into the dirt. I was only 16, but disappointment already lived in my chest like an old wound that never healed. I stopped talking much. I stopped smiling, but I did not stop working because I was not fighting for myself alone. I was fighting for my mother. By the time I turned 17, I was doing 3 jobs. In the early mornings, I worked at a mechanic's shop, handing tools and cleaning oil-covered floors. In the afternoons, I delivered packages on an old bicycle someone gave me out of pity. At night, I studied under a weak yellow bulb that flickered like my fading strength some nights. I was so tired that I fell asleep sitting on the floor with my books open. Sometimes I dreamed of my father. In my dreams, he was always silent, just watching me with sad eyes. One evening, I returned home with no money, not a single coin. My mother had not eaten since the previous night, but she still placed a small plate in front of me. It had only rice. No vegetables. No meat. Nothing. Double quotes. Eat, my son, she said softly. I looked at the plate, and then at her thin face. Amy, you eat first. She smiled and shook her head. I already ate. She lied that night, when she fell asleep. I saw her shivering from hunger. I went outside. I stood near a restaurant where people threw leftover food into a bin. I waited until no one was watching. Then I took the leftovers. I brought them home, and that night, my mother and I ate from trash. I did not cry because hunger had already killed my tears. The next day at school, I could not focus. My stomach hurt. My heart hurt even more. Other students talked about new shoes, new bags, new phones. I could not even afford a notebook. Once, during a class activity, the teacher asked us to bring supplies that cost a small amount of money. I skipped school for 3 days. Because even that small amount was impossible for me. That was the first time I truly felt ashamed of being poor. We had relatives, but after my father's death, most of them disappeared. Some said they were busy. Some said they were also poor. Some did not even answer our calls. Once, during a desperate time, my mother went to a relative's house and asked for help. The door was closed in her face. She came back home quietly. She did not tell me what happened, but I saw blood on her feet from walking so long in the heat that night. I swore something inside me. One day, not a single door in the world will be closed to my mother. At the age of 18, after saving small amounts for months, I tried again. This time, I partnered with a man who promised big profits. He spoke sweetly. He dreamed loudly. He smiled often. I trusted him. We opened a small shop together for 2 months. It worked. Then one morning I arrived at the shop and found it empty. The shelves. The cash box. Even the SIGNBOARD. All gone. So was the man. He had taken everything and disappeared that day. Something broke inside me, not loudly, silently. The night I wanted to quit life that night. I sat on the roof of our small house. The city lights looked beautiful from far away. I felt like I was watching a world where I did not belong. I thought of my father. I thought of my stolen childhood. I thought of my hungry mother, and for the first time in my life, I felt tired of living, not because I wanted to die, but because I did not know how to continue. When I went downstairs, I saw my mother praying. Tears were falling from her eyes onto the prayer mat. She was crying while whispering my name. That image shattered my dark thoughts to pieces. If she had not given up on me, how could I give up on myself? A few days later, I told my mother about the betrayal. I expected anger. I expected disappointment. Instead, she held my face and said, "My son, wolves bite only those who walk alone. One day, you will walk ahead of everyone." That day, her words became my shield. Despite everything, I continued my education. Many times, my exam fees were paid late. Many times I borrowed books. Many times teachers scolded me, but I never stopped going, because my mother believed that even if I had nothing else, education would never betray me. At the age of 20, I finally got a stable job as an assistant in a small office. The salary was low, but it was steady for the first time in years. My mother and I ate properly for a whole month. For the first time, I brought her medicine without begging. For the first time, I bought her new clothes. She held the fabric in her hands like it was gold. That day, I saw happiness in her eyes again. Even with a job, my heart still dreamed of business. I studied others. I learned quietly. I saved secretly. I waited patiently, because I had learned something powerful through pain. Rushing creates loss. Patience creates kings. Just when life felt slightly stable, just when I was finally breathing, my mother began coughing. At first, it was light, then it became violent, then it became painful. The doctor said she needed proper treatment. I looked at the bill. It felt like a death sentence. I sold everything I had, my bike, my savings, my watch. Still, it was not enough. My mother looked at me and said, "My son, don't destroy your life for me." Those words scared me more than death itself. I had lost my father as a child. Now I was standing at the edge of losing my mother too, and I was still powerless. Still poor. Still fighting, but deep inside a storm was forming. A storm that would either destroy me or turn me into something the world had never imagined. My mother's illness did not arrive like a storm. My mother's illness did not arrive like a storm. It arrived like a slow shadow. At first, it was only a cough. Then weakness. Then long silences where she would stare at the wall as if speaking to someone I could not see. The doctor said she needed rest, medicine, and care, but poverty does not understand medical advice. Only pain does. Every visit to the doctor felt like a battle between life and money. Sometimes I bought half the prescribed medicine. Sometimes I borrowed. Sometimes I borrowed, sometimes begged, but sickness does not accept excuses, it only grows. My mother stopped sewing. Her hands that once fed us now trembled. Her eyes that once guided me were becoming weaker by the day. Still, she never complained, not once. Instead, she worried about me, my son. Don't miss your work because of me, my son. Did you eat today, my son? Are you saving for your future? She was dying, and still thinking of my tomorrow. One cold night, I returned home late from work. She was sitting on her bed, waiting. Her face looked softer, weaker, but peaceful. She asked me to sit beside her. My son, she whispered, promise me something. I held her hand tightly. Promise me you will not break, even if I leave. I froze. Fear climbed up my spine. Amy, don't talk like that. You will be fine. She smiled gently. The ones who pray the most also prepare the most. Tears rolled silently down my face. That night, I did not sleep. Her condition worsened rapidly. The doctor said she needed urgent treatment. More money. More tests. More hospital care. I ran everywhere, sold my clothes, sold my phone, left my job temporarily to search for help. Some people gave small support, many turned away. One person said something that shattered me. Why waste money on someone who is already half gone? I wanted to scream, but poverty stole even my anger. I returned home, empty-handed. My mother saw my face and understood everything without a word. She placed her weak hand on my cheek and said, Allah is enough, my son. One night her breathing became heavy, uneven. Scary, I held her hand and kept calling her name. The room was silent, except for her breath and my broken voice. She looked at me with eyes full of love. With effort she whispered, look how far you came, without your father. Then she gathered her strength for one last sentence. My prayers will never leave you. Her hand tightened around mine. Then, slowly, very slowly, it relaxed. Her breathing softened and stopped, just like that. The woman who carried my entire world in her heart left the world behind. I did not scream. I did not cry. I did not move. I just sat there, holding her cold hand, waiting for her to wake up, but she never did. Neighbors came, then relatives, then people I'd never seen before. They took her away, but something inside me was taken forever with her. The day of her burial, I felt like a walking body without a soul. The sky was cloudy. The ground was cold. That as they lowered her into the grave, my knees gave up. I fell to the ground and cried like a lost child. Not a grown man, not a fighter, just a child who had lost both parents. One by one, people left soon. Only I remained beside her grave. I spoke to the soil. Amy, I made it this far because of you. Don't stop praying for me. The wind answered with silence. After her death, the house felt like a grave. No footsteps, no voice, no prayer sounds at night. No warm food, no one waiting for me. I returned to work, but I was empty. I smiled, but I was hollow. Money slowly returned, but happiness did not. Every success felt tasteless because the one I worked for was no longer there. One night, as I returned home exhausted, I collapsed on the floor and finally allowed myself to cry. Not softly, not quietly, but like a man whose entire world had been buried. I lost my father as a boy, and now I lost my mother before I became a man. I felt truly alone for the first time in my life, completely alone. Weeks passed, months passed, pain stayed, but something else grew with it. Determination. One night, I remembered her words, my prayers will never leave you. I stood up, wiped my tears and said to myself, if her prayers are alive, then my dreams will not die. That night, a broken son stood up as a determined man. My father gave me birth, my mother gave me life, and after they both left, they gave me a reason to rise. The boy who cleaned floors, the boy who ate from leftovers, the boy who ate from leftovers, the boy who buried his own mother was about to shake the world. After my mother's death, the world did not stop. People still laughed, buses still moved, markets were still noisy. Only my life had gone silent. Every morning I woke up and for a brief second forgot she was gone. Then reality would strike me like a slap. No breakfast cooking, no prayer whispers, no gentle voice calling my name. Just walls. Cold walls for months. I lived like a shadow of myself. I went to work, I did my tasks, I came home, but my soul stayed at the graveyard at night. I would often speak to the empty room. Amy, I'm tired today. No answer ever came, but strangely, I felt like she was still listening. One evening, while cleaning an old trunk that belonged to my mother, I found a small folded paper. It was a letter, written in shaky handwriting, addressed to me, my son. If you are reading this, it means I am no longer with you. Do not cry for me. I lived my life in your footsteps and I will rest in your success. Promise me that you will never become bitter. Promise me that you will never stop dreaming. Even if the whole world turns its back on you, Allah will never do that. Your mother. I read that letter many times that night. Each word burned, each line healed. I was 23 when I decided to try one last time. Not a big business, not a risky one, just a small service using the skills I had learned at the office. I borrowed a tiny amount from a coworker. I rented a small corner of a shop. I worked day and night. There was no one to warn me, no one to encourage me. Only my mother's voice in my memory saying, stand again. After 3 months of struggle, I earned my first true profit. It was not much, but it was clean, honest, earned through sweat, not luck. That night, I went to my mother's grave with sweets in my hand. I placed them near the soil and whispered, "Amy, today your son earned without begging." For the first time after her death, I smiled. Success did not come easily. Some months were good, some were painful. Once a big client cheated me once. I lost an important deal because I had no connections. Once I had to sleep hungry again. But this time, I did not feel weak, because now, I was not running from pain. I was walking through it. Slowly. Something changed. People started noticing my work. One by one, the same doors that once closed on my poor mother started opening for her son. Relatives who once ignored me now greeted me with smiles. People who once mocked me now asked for advice. I remembered every insult, but I chose silence because silence had become my strength. One day, an old man came to my small office. He looked at me carefully and said, "You look like your father." I froze. He told me he had worked with my father many years ago. Before leaving, he said something I never forgot. "Your father dreamed of seeing you successful. Don't stop now." That night, I cried again. But this time, not from weakness, from purpose. At the age of 27, an opportunity arrived. A company needed a reliable partner. Many applied. Few were chosen. I was one of them. That deal changed everything. My income tripled. My name entered serious business circles for the first time in my life. I felt like I was finally catching up with destiny. With my new earnings, the first thing I did was not buy a car, not clothes, not luxury. I bought a small house, not for me, for the promise I made to my mother while she slept one day. "I will build a life where you will never have to beg." She never lived in that house, but her name lives in every brick. Success brought money, respect, power, but it did not bring family back. There was no mother to pray, no father to be proud. Whenever people celebrated my achievements, I smiled. But inside, I felt the same empty child who once cried beside a small plate of rice. By 30, my business expanded. People started calling me sir. Employees stood when I entered. Banks trusted me, investors approached me. The poor boy who once picked leftovers now signed checks that fed hundreds. Yet every achievement echoed one painful truth. I had everything, except the two people I earned it for. From street dust to office desks. From hunger to honor. From tears to triumph. The boy had risen, but the final lesson, the heaviest emotion, the truth that success cannot heal every wound, was still waiting. Years passed like fast-moving clouds. The boy who once slept hungry, the boy who cleaned floors, the boy who buried his own parents, had now become a powerful businessman. People called me sir, some called me boss, some even called me king, but none of them knew. This king had no parents to bow before. The day I opened my biggest company branch, there was a grand ceremony. Lights, flowers, media, applause, people cheered when my name was announced. I stood on the stage in a perfect suit, holding a microphone in my hand. Everyone waited for my success speech. They wanted to hear how I became rich, how I became powerful, how I became a king. But when I opened my mouth, my voice trembled, and instead of a business speech, a son's pain came out. I was not born rich, I said. I was born fatherless. The hall became silent. I worked as a child. I studied as a laborer. I slept hungry. I failed many times. I was betrayed. I was mocked. I was called unlucky. People were listening in complete silence now. Then my eyes filled with tears. But today, if you are calling me successful, if you are calling me a king, then remember one thing. I am only standing here because of one woman, my mother. The hall was silent. Some people started crying. I continued with a shaking voice. She sold her memories for my education. She starved so I could eat. She prayed when I had stopped believing. And when I had nothing, she still had faith in me. I paused, then whispered, and she died before seeing any of this that day. The whole hall cried with me. Today, I live in a big house, a beautiful house, with expensive furniture, soft carpets, quiet rooms, but none of the rooms have a mother waiting in them. Sometimes I return from meetings tired, and I still forget she is gone. I open the door and say aloud, "Amy, I'm home," and then silence answers me. I eat the best food in the world today, but I swear, no food ever tasted better than that half piece of bread my mother used to give me while lying about being full. Luxury filled my life, but love left it every week. Without fail, I visit two graves. One for my father, one for my mother. I sit there silently and speak to the soil. Abu, your son did not lose. Amy, your prayers did not fail. Sometimes the wind touches my face and I feel like someone is wiping my tears. People think being rich means being complete. They are wrong. You can be rich and still be broken. You can be powerful and still feel weak. You can own the world and still miss one small room where your mother used to pray. The orphans I help today, I run schools for poor children, food programs for hungry families, homes for orphans, not because I am generous, but because I see myself in every hungry child and my mother in every struggling woman. Don't give money, I give hope. Because hope saved me once. learned many things in business, how to invest, how to grow, how to win, but the most important lesson of life, I learned too late. If your parents are alive, you are already rich. I lost my father as a boy. I lost my mother before becoming a man, but I gained something greater than wealth. I gained a purpose. And today, even though the world calls me a king, deep inside I am still just a son, standing at his mother's grave, waiting for her to smile once more. I became a king in the eyes of the world, but in my heart I will always remain a mother's orphaned son.